So where are we at in this chapter? Well, we've covered the Carnot refrigeration and the vapor compression refrigeration. And this is very practical. And because it's so practical, I emphasize it in a very practical way. Today's lecture will be very practical. But when you're dealing with most of the refrigeration systems, not all, down here there's a gas refrigeration system, and I'll talk briefly about an absorption refrigeration system. But most mechanical refrigeration systems are vapor compression. And so they'll have a compressor, and if you just look for it, you can find the compressor. They'll have a condenser, and if you look for it, you'll find it, and the evaporator. And this component, the expansion valve, comes in many different shapes and forms, and sometimes you can't see it that readily. But you'll be able to often find the compressor, the evaporator, the condenser, and then the expansion valve if you can find it. So I want to talk a little bit about that. Just always remember those four components. In the home, last time we talked about, you have the outside, in the backyard or on the side of the house, out of the way. You have the condensing unit. What are the two components in that condensing unit? What are they? Compressor and condensing coil, or the condenser, right? And then you have a line set, copper lines, one bare, one insulated. Fluid goes to the building, away from the building, or to the house or away from the house. And either you have in the attic, thing called a furnace, or in the closet. It'll be either horizontal in the attic or vertical in the closet. And inside here, what type of coil do you have? Evaporator, the evaporator. And where else? What other components up there in the furnace close to the evaporator? The expansion valve, what controls the refrigerant flow. So this is used to cool down the air, which is then distributed through the house to duct system. We also took a look at this type of furnace. Here's a coil, the A coil, because it's typically shaped this way. And the airflow comes up inside and then passes over the coils, is cooled, and then it goes out in the duct system and distributed. Condenser or evaporator? The A coil is the evaporator. And we covered a lot more about that. Last time I showed you a picture of an A coil, traditional A coil. I think I showed two pictures. We talked about the water lines that connect for the condensate drain. And we talked about there's a small diameter connection that needs to be hooked up and a large diameter connection hooked up. And then this sits tightly inside of a ductwork where it's sealed on these faces here, right? And so I asked these questions as review. I want everybody to answer these questions on your sheet of paper. And I'll pause and walk around and make sure that you get this down. So what flows in the large diameter line? Liquid or vapor? That's your choice, right? Is it liquid or vapor that flows in the large diameter line? What direction does it flow in the large diameter line? Does it flow to the coil or away from the coil? Is it hot or cold? If I grabbed that large diameter line, if I grabbed it and touched it, would I sense it being hot or cold? And what would be the pressure inside that large diameter line, right there at the connection where you're going to hook it up? When you're running it, is it going to be a high pressure or low pressure? So answer all those questions for the large diameter, and then the same questions for the small diameter, okay? I'm going to pause. Please answer them. I'm going to walk around and see how you do. It's going to be, as soon as you pass this class, right? It's like, oh, what'd you study in thermodynamics? Oh, I have a problem with my air conditioning system. Please come diagnose it. Anyway, and plus there's a lot of careers out there. There's just a lot of people who graduated and they work in this type of industry. So, do you want the answer or do you want to struggle? Answer. Struggle. Nobody wants to struggle. All right, the large diameter line. Liquid or vapor? All right, I heard vapor. Vapor. You need more room for the vapor. The density of the liquid is so high you don't need a large. Is the mass flow rate in the liquid in the large diameter line equal to the mass flow rate in the small diameter line? Yeah, what comes in goes out. And so you need liquids compact, high density, smaller line is needed. Okay. What is the direction of the flow? Large diameter coming out. It's an evaporator. The A coil is an evaporator. It evaporates, it goes to the vapor phase. True? So it's going to now go and leave the evaporator and go to the compressor. So it's going to go from the evaporator coil. That's the A coil, the evaporator coil. Is it hot or cold? This is where a lot of people got it wrong. It just evaporated. It just boiled. When I say boil, you think hot, don't you? But it just evaporated at low pressure. Is it hot or cold? If I touch it, is it going to feel cold or is it going to, ouch? It's cold. It has to be colder than the air that it made colder, right? The air comes in here hot. Let's say the air comes in 75 and the air leaves at 55 degrees F, right? The refrigerant's typically 40 degrees F. It's coming out having boiled at 40 degrees F. That's relatively cold. It's not going to freeze your hand, but it's cold, all right? Is it high pressure or low pressure? The evaporator's at low pressure. What's at high pressure? The other coil. What's the name of the other coil? The condenser's at high pressure. All right. Now, the opposite's true for the small diameter. If you get the large diameter, you get the small diameter down, right? So what's in it? Liquid. What direction does it flow? It flows to the A coil, to the evaporator. Is it hot or cold? It's liquid in that line. But it's just got beat up and condensed in the condenser. Beat up in the compressor and condensed in the condenser. It maybe had to reject heat to 120 degrees F, right? Because you want your air conditioner to work on a hot day in August. To reject heat to 120 degree F air, maybe it's 140, 160 degrees F. Is that hot or cold? 160 degree F, liquid, refrigerant in the line. It's hot. And is it under high pressure? Yes, it is. It's under high pressure. Right in here, it gets split, and then it goes. Now, last time I may have said that the pressure drop can occur in that smaller diameter line until it gets down here. Okay? But essentially, when it enters the evaporator, the larger diameter tubes that are fin connected in that coil, it's at low pressure. But it's high pressure at the liquid line coming in. The restriction or metering device. Sometimes they have a TXV, sometimes they just have a capillary tube to control it. Please struggle with this. Isn't this good? Right? You can diagnose things when you get out and talk to people after this class. I want to expose you some terminology. Sometimes it's a mini split system. They'll talk about a split system where the condenser, the condensing unit's outside, the furnace with the evaporators inside. And there's lines that connect them. But when you have a mini split, you have multiple. So maybe you have one unit that does the condensing and lines that supply and return refrigerant to two evaporators. Or maybe evaporator in 4 zones. 4 different rooms of a house. So it looks just like a split system, but they call it a mini split with these small air handlers. Couple advantages: no ducts in the attic. And if you have a duct in the attic, guess what the duct does? Leaks. All ducts leak. I've been in attics at Hobbs. The ducts are even just old and they fell off. And the thing is blasting cold air into the attic, and the people are complaining they have $350 electric bill, and it's still uncomfortable inside the home. Check out your attic. Check out the ducts. Happens all the time, right? But at least 10% duct leakage in attics. If it leaks nice cold air into the attic, guess what? You have to suck in air from the outside to make it up in the house. Because that's what's happening. It's pumping it out And some of it's supposed to get into the rooms. 90% gets into the rooms, but at least 10%, kind of average bad duct system, 10% leakage, goes into the attic. That means you got to draw in 10% from your doors, your windows, or some other place, maybe sometimes from the attic itself. So it's really bad. So this is great because you don't have any ductwork that leaks. Right there, it just blows it in and out of this air handler evaporator on the wall. Also, if you have 4 zones and you're not using this part of the house, what can you do to the air conditioning system? Do you know it doesn't cost any money to run an air conditioning system? It's off. It's like, what's the gas mileage of a SUV versus a Toyota Prius if they're both parked sitting in the driveway? It's the greatest way to conserve energy. Don't use it. Turn it off. So this right here is a huge advantage, turning the system off or modulating it. Let that room get warm with a programmable thermostat. You tell it, I'm going to go to bed at 10 o'clock, start cooling down at 9. And when I come in there, it's going to be nice and cool. And then I don't want to worry about it. I get up at 5 or 6 in the morning to go to work. Let it start ramping back up. All the ingenuity of programmable thermostats can be used to save a lot of energy. All right, so mini split. I think you'll see more and more of them. Every now and then, they'll have packaged air conditioning systems. I've seen a number of these in the Midwest, but not really down here. What's the difference? Same house. They have a big box sitting outside the backyard or close. It's air that flows to and from it, a big air duct to and from the packaged unit. So they have the evaporator with the condenser and the compressor. It's a packaged unit. All you have to do is hook up the air duct system, right? I don't think anybody around here has one. I've not seen them in San Antonio. But I've seen them elsewhere. The beauty of these is you can detach this and move it all off or replace it all in one package, right? And the furnace is sized for the condenser unit, and they get replaced together, all right? But the bad is you have to have large diameter ducts going in and out of your house and then distributed from that one point.
Is there a lot more loss?
No, I would say sometimes people will get somebody to come out, a contractor, and say, well, your furnace is pretty good condition, but your condensing unit's bad. Well, just replace that because I don't have the money to pay for both. And then they start to get mismatch. They got like a 5-ton unit on the outside and a 4-ton furnace, that can handle it, and it's a mismatch. But here you don't have that mismatch. It's all packaged. Most of the packaged units are what they call rooftop units, and they're in commercial settings. Now, you can have a big house in the Dominion, and you can have a rooftop package unit too. And I know some people do out there because they need 10 tons of cooling because they have, I don't know how many thousand square foot, big homes, right? But you'll see these on tops of big buildings like Walmart or other retail grocery stores and stuff. So up on the roof, they have a unit and unit and a unit and a unit. Oh boy, can you count them all? Are you sure that's not mirrors? And you have the air coming up into the unit from the roof, the bottom of the roof. It's an open warehouse typically. It's conditioned and then supplied back down. They may have a supply that goes over and dumps it, or whatever. But it's a rooftop package unit. And so in here, you have your condensing coil going to be around this side with the fan drawing the air over and up. Probably right here, that's all condensing coil, the fan right there. And then on this side, other half, you're going to have your evaporator. What's this? This is economizer to bring in outdoor air into the building. Okay, they'll have a little opening. On your window unit, you may have a little knob. Do you want fresh air? Open it a little bit, close it. Anybody seen that on their window air conditioning unit? Similar. But economizer is, let's say they're trying to keep the inside of the building cool, but in this morning, like it was about 45 degrees when I was getting into my vehicle, I could just take the outdoor air as it is, draw it through a filter, and throw it into the building, and it would work perfect. And that's economizer mode. So when you see this little hood out here, that's typically what it's for. Taking in some outdoor air and could be completely running in economizer mode if it's set up that way. Next application, automobiles. You should pop the hood of your automobile and take a look. And you should be able to identify what are the four components. The big two are coils. In the front, what coil? In front of the radiator? The condenser, right? Typically right in front of the radiator. The radiator has what type of fluid going through it? Water, glycol mixture, antifreeze. And then through the condensing coil, you have your refrigerant, 134A. That's one thing usually you can spot pretty well. What's the next thing you can spot pretty well? Or maybe even easier to spot? Compressor running off of a belt that supplies the mechanical energy. What's that belt? Serpentine belt. So it's drawing the mechanical power to run that compressor. Usually you can find that. The evaporator, you usually have a harder time because it's tucked under the dash somewhere. Right. Yeah. It's harder to find, right? You just paid $2,000 to have your evaporator in the car replaced. That's a lot of labor to rip up the dash. And then typically there's a blower motor close to it, and the blower motors go earlier often than the evaporator itself. And then somewhere close in, you'll have the restriction for the pressure drop. So, because as soon as you drop the pressure of the refrigerant through that expansion valve, it's ready to cool. Dump it right into the evaporator and start evaporating and cooling. True? So, question. You have two lines that go back and forth. You have what they call a high side line and a low side line. Low what? High what? Pressure. High pressure and low pressure. In one of the lines, it's high pressure refrigerant. In one of the lines, it's low pressure refrigerant, right? So in the high pressure line, what's flowing? Is it, don't call it out. Is it liquid or vapor? And where is it going to and from? It's coming from something and going to something. What is it doing? Where is it coming, what's it from and where is it going to? In the high pressure line. And is it hot or cold? If I grab a hold of it, is it going to be hot or is it going to be cold? All right? Do that for the high pressure line, then do that for the low pressure line. I'll pause. All right, when you approach a problem like this, there's four major components. Sketch them some way and link them together, and in your mind, you say, okay, so we started this class, this session, saying there was a condenser, evaporator, compressor, and a metering device, restriction. Did the refrigerant flow that direction through the four devices? True? Where is the high pressure side? Where is the low pressure side? So we cut it here. The compressor boosts the pressure. So this is the high pressure side. What is this one? The low pressure side. Right? Now, the other thing is two components are typically close to each other. In the residential application, what was outside the house? Which of these two of the four components were close to each other outside the house? The compressor and the condenser were close to each other. And inside, in the furnace, in the A coil, what two devices were in the house close to each other? Expansion valve in the evaporator. As soon as you expand it, you need to evaporate it. Right? Guess which line is long? The line connecting the condenser with the metering device, evaporator, because they're real close together. But it goes first to the metering device, the expansion valve. And then this line. Does that help? Now I'm going to pause and I'm going to go around and I want more perfect answers, okay? Got it? All right, one other thing that will help you is always think about the air that flows over the condenser and the air that flows over the evaporator, right? So the air that flows over the condenser, is that the air that flows over the front of the car and is dispersed like that? True? Okay. You ever been in about a parking lot and it's hot, August, and off the pavement, the hot air, maybe that hot air is 120 or 100, let's just be not that hot, 120 degree F air around the condenser is probably not unrealistic. I heard that the people that drive their cars through Arizona, sometimes it even gets warmer than that. It's very hot. And then if you're on pavement, parking lot, your engine's sitting there belching off a lot of heat too. The automobile radiator is right behind it. It can be very hot. You have to reject heat to that. So what's the temperature of the refrigerant in the condenser? A good 15, 20 degrees higher. Does that make sense? The refrigerant in here is, let's say, 145. It comes out liquid. I know it comes out liquid out the condenser. But if I touch that liquid line, if I touch that high pressure liquid line right here, is it going to hurt? It's going to hot. It's hot. High pressure liquid, hot. Going from the condenser to the expansion valve. Or you could even say evaporator. I know the expansion valve is almost part of the evaporator. Okay. And then this line is low pressure. It's larger diameter. The air that went inside the car, you maybe want it blowing on you at 55 degrees F. The refrigerant has to be colder because maybe it sucks in the 75 degree F air. So the refrigerant in here needs to be, 40 degrees F. The refrigerant needs to boil at 40 degrees F. Make sense? So guess what? This is cool. Low pressure. And it goes from the evaporator back to the compressor. True? All that help? All right. So here's another illustration. It just confirms it. They color code it. I like the color coding. So it comes out high pressure liquid, goes through the filter dryer, goes up to this expansion control device. And I'm going to pass one around. If you took it for Thermo 1 with me, maybe I pass this around. I like to pass it around. It has a passage in the block that has a liquid going this way on the bottom. And on the top, what does it have coming out of the evaporator? This right here, color-coded low-pressure gas or vapor. And so it's low-pressure vapor going through. There's a bulb right here in the middle. It senses the temperature of what's coming off the vapor, the evaporator. Okay? It will then lift or push down a needle, which will modulate the flow in the lower two parts of this block. It'll modulate the flow of the liquid into the evaporator. It'll control this flow rate by opening it or closing, pinching off. True? And so what happens is you don't want to overly flood the evaporator or starve the evaporator. You want to give it just the right amount based on the temperature coming out of the evaporator. So I pass that around. These devices aren't the only way to control the flow. I'll also pass around what they call an orifice tube. In automotive application, a lot cheaper to manufacture, very inexpensive, so it's very popular. And you just have this in the line, and this gives you the automatic pressure drop because there's a small copper tube, a small diameter, about whatever, 1.5 to 2 inches long. The engineers picked its diameter and length. All right? And they have screens to keep it from getting clogged with debris. There's always little bits. You have to anticipate debris, right? A lot of them have screens on both sides because when you shut the system off, you used to have a high pressure side, a low pressure side. It's going to go back to equilibrium. So the flow could go backwards for a while when you shut it off. So you don't want to clog it up any which way. So I'll pass around the orifice tube. Both of these do the same. They have the same purpose. This is the metering or the control, the pressure drop for them. This one's more advanced, right? It's got a control feedback. This one's just an orifice tube. So let me do that. How many people have seen people hook up gauges? And they hook up gauges to the high pressure side and they hook up a gauge to the low pressure side. Seen that? Yeah. So what are they doing? They're tapping into, you can do it right around the compressor, Or in the automotive application, you do it basically where the lines are convenient. Back typically in this region, you tap into them, okay? This is the low pressure right here you would tap into as it goes back toward the compressor, and then the high pressure right there. So you have the taps. Typically they're close together so that they can find them easy and attach their gauges. And they can diagnose, oh, you have too much refrigerant, too little refrigerant, etc. Then they can hook up and they can charge the system or pull a vacuum and work on it. How many people have seen window air conditioning units? Good. Guess what? The same components can be found there. So you have the inside, you have a control panel right here. What is this? Right, if I can, typically you could pop that front down. What's right behind it? A little filter. It's usually washable. And then you have what coil right there that you'll see right behind the filter, right in here. The evaporator or condenser? The evaporator. And the air is drawn from the inside of the room across the filter, across the evaporator coil. It turns, there's a blower motor in there, and it's coughed up and spit out, thrown out with a high speed to project it into the room. True? Then you have the other half, or it takes more than half on the outside, dangling outside your window. True? What's out there? Well, what's out there is a compressor. And what type of coil? The condenser coil. And usually you have little louvered slots on the top and on the sides. Maybe you don't have them on the top, maybe only on the sides, that bring in air from the sides, and then a fan blows it across the condenser coil in the back, rejecting heat to the hot outside. Right? Makes sense? Now, there's a little bit of, I like this illustration because it even shows the condensate. There's a little bit of water that'll condense on the evaporator coil. Usually you have it sloped. There's a little tray on the bottom. The whole bottom is a tray, lip to it, so then it slopes such that it'll go and drain out. And then they used to always have drain holes. They always thought that water was bad. But guess what? They don't want drain holes now, right? What do they want that water to do? They want it to just the tips of that fan to splash on it, because if they can get it to evaporate, they can get it to cool the air that now tries to cool the condenser. You ever notice that? It used to be like older systems, window unit to have like a fountain drawing out of it. Now, no, they don't want that. They would like to use that water to help cool the refrigerant in the condenser to help improve performance. But anyway, so there you go. You can look for the major components, 4 major components, and you can find it in your window air conditioning unit. Refrigerator, freezer. Seen them? Use them? Where is my 4 components? Typically, pull it away from the wall, and you'll see this coil like this with a very coarse finning to help promote the heat transfer and hold the coil in place. And that's my what coil in the back? Condenser or evaporator? Condenser to reject heat to the high temperature kitchen air. What's this sitting down here? That's my compressor. It's hermetically sealed. It has little rubber feet that can help with the vibrations down in here, okay? And it's hooked up. Where is my evaporator? Somewhere else, typically in the interior, with the expansion valve to control the refrigerant flow. I may want a compartment up here to be really, really cold. I may want a compartment down here and then be not so cold. I don't want things to freeze in the freezer, and I need my ice cream to stay really, really cold in the freezer. All right? So it's 2 different temperatures. How do they achieve this? They have 2 different evaporators, and they have 2 different pressures. A lot of times, too, they won't have that condenser coil on the back. They'll have it underneath. And what will happen is they'll be drawing air in on one side down by your feet, and they'll be turning it and pushing it out on the other side by your feet. Sometimes you'll be standing by one and you're like, oh, this feels good in the winter. I have warm air blowing on my feet. Ever had that experience? Yeah. course. So some of us have those type. And so underneath it, they have a coil like this, and it draws the air in, a sealed partition. The fan is sitting here to draw it. It draws it across the compressor to help cool the compressor as well. And then it blows it out across a pan. What's that pan for? You want frost-free freezer? It goes into defrost mode. Where does that ice go? Down a tube. Don't want to splash it on your wood floor or linoleum floor, puts it in a tray. The tray holds the drip until, and as you blow warm air across it, it's gone, right? Humidifies the room a little bit. Okay? So that tray, you know, hey, what's this down here for? Don't take it out and throw it away. Keep it under there. Okay? Otherwise you have water stain. And it won't, you know, it'll fill up and then dry out and fill up and dry out. There's some common problems that I'll talk about. One is dirty coils. This is a clean coil. This is a dirty coil. Where does it get dirty from? Lint and other dust and stuff like that. Here is on the outside of a house. Air conditioner could be leaves, could be grass clippings, could be just junk that collects on it. Here is a peek underneath the refrigerator in somebody's house. Take the front grill off. Take a look. Here is this supposed to be the condenser coil. It's all clogged up with air. You think airflow's good over that? Guess what your refrigerator in your house looks like? Maybe like that. Remember I said about the air filter in the house? This is a peek up into the A side, the A coil inside. If you don't have an air filter, oh, it's all clogging up. I'll take that air filter out and leave it. I'll get it at Home Depot next month. Don't do that. This is all clogged up from dirt and other stuff. It's also a wet environment because it's sweating. You get wet environment, dust, you got mites, you got mold, you got great stuff just distributed to your bedroom and you inhale it. Now also when it clogs it up, the refrigerant can't cool down. And somebody was telling me, yeah, my A coil freezes up. There's a picture of a frozen up A coil due to lack of airflow across it. Right? It freezes up. Anybody had that experience? No? A couple? Yeah. Then you have to wait for it to defrost. Your service man comes, he has to clean your A coil. How does he do it? He's got to get all the refrigerant out, cut the A coil out, take it to the backyard, spray some stuff on it, and clean it. It's at least a $600 bill, probably $800 bill. Cheap air filters are cheap and replace them, right? But this is what they've got to do, and they've got to clean that all off. They have chemicals to help do that and really get in there and foam out in between the fins to clean it. Other problem, if you ever have hail and you have an, what's this called, rooftop unit sitting outside, that was what kind of coil? Evaporator or condenser coil? Condenser coil. Guess what this looks like? It went through World War III. Hail. It's all pinged up. Those fins are not promoting heat transfer anymore. They're blocking the airflow, and you've got to straighten them out. They also have hail guards and stuff. I was just going to show that to you quickly. Put them on if you have hail-prone area. South Texas hail-prone area. You need to have them. If they even sell combs for the fins, and you can pull through at different fin density, how many fins per inch, 10 fins, 8 fins, 14 fins per inch, to straighten those out. Got it? Or if you don't have the $30 or $10, you can even use a cheap plastic knife. Just be careful, right? Almost done. Here's your extra credit opportunity. You might want to be thinking about this. I want you to get some practical experience. Look at, go and replace the air filter in your home or window air conditioning system. Take some pictures so you can prove it to me that you did it. 1 point. Then you have dirty condenser coil on your refrigerator at your house or your friend's house, your mom's house, somebody's house. Or maybe the window. Prefer the refrigerator. Go pull it away, pop the bottom, clean it out, vacuum, blow it off, dust it off, take some pictures, document it. Got it? Then the last, a little harder, is if you have a window unit or you have an outdoor unit and you look at those fins and every time a ball hit them, some kid swiped something across it, hail damage, get in fin and straighten those fins. and prove to me you straighten the fins. Be very careful there. Don't go poking holes. Got it? Vehicle as well, it's very hard to get to. It'll work. Then find a friend that has some damage. But I've never seen a set of fins which are really straight, unless it's brand new. And even when the guy installs it brand new, guess where his elbow goes? I'm serious, right there. And it looks like, oh, look at that. It's all bent over. So this is just up to 5 points on the next exam. I thought I'd give you a heads up so you can start. Thank you very much.